and girls, what is going on? It's your boy Peter here, aka Peter Freako 10, baby. Bring you guys an episode of the Movie Review Show, where the good movies are always reviewed. Okay, back into our movie review, and we're continuing Scream Fest. And we're continuing the Child's Play series. Hell yeah, baby. And we're coming to the last film of the original trilogy. And with a lot of sequels, I tend to be gravitated towards the one that is the most unique and the one that has a lot going for it. And I remember seeing this as a kid and being gravitated to it the most, along with number 2. And it's the one that at the beginning was judged so harshly, but now it's seen to been redeemed as the years go on. And which film are we talking about next? Well, if you're good at numbers and good at counting, the next one we're talking about is Child's Play 3, also known as Child's Play 3, Look Who's Stalking. There comes a time to put away childhood things, but some things won't stay put. But yeah, I already mentioned this one numerous times in the other 2 reviews, but here we are finally talking about it. So, how is Child's Play 3? Well, grab your knives, grab your guns with paintball bullets, make sure they're not real bullets, grab your good guy dolls, and let's talk about Child's Play 3. Now, Child's Play 3, this is a film made in 1991, a full 9 months after Child's Play 2 was released, to be exact. And this is directed by a guy named Jack Bender. Now, Jack Bender, I wouldn't be surprised if you guys didn't know who this was, considering this is a guy mostly known for TV work. But his projects are anything but classless, considering he directed episodes of Beverly Hills 90210. And production basically starts like this. Child's Play 2 was a hit. It may not have been as big as the first unless you adjust it for inflation, but it was still profitable enough for Universal to move forward with a third one. However, they already decided that 3 was going to happen right before 2 even hit theaters, as Universal was looking at this series as it was going to be their horror series, much like how New Line was with Nightmare on Elm Street. This made it hard on Don, too, as he felt by this point he was getting pressured into getting a third one going, and by this point he felt like he was running out of ideas for a new installment. And I'll add my 2 cents in. I think because John LaFia wasn't involved in this one, and considering how the 2 worked together on the previous 2, considering the fact that they were feeding ideas off each other, I think it made it hard for Don to work in the writing room alone because he couldn't come up with any new ideas of where he wanted to take the series. I mean, an original idea he did have for this movie was the idea of multiple Chuckies, but Universal turned it down as they were working with the same budget as Child's Play 2, that being $13 million, which I find weird considering the fact that these movies are very successful. Considering their low budgets, why didn't they give them more money to work with? I mean, New Line, the first Nightmare on Elm Street, New Line did well with that. Why didn't they give more money? Nevertheless, wasn't meant to be. So instead, they settled on the idea of Andy, now a teenager and in the future, and taking place at a military school, with the original intent of getting Peter Jackson to direct. Probably was looking at him due to his work on Meet the Feebles, and actually had the idea of John Ritter playing a security guard in the factory at the opening with his son Jason, where he would explain to the actor playing his son, well, the actor who was his son playing the character, about the legend of Chucky. For Peter Jackson, it's unknown if he said no or he was too busy on his own work. And due to a schedule problem with John Ritter, they dropped that scene too. John did end up getting to work with him in Bride of Chucky, which I will be reviewing soon. But with the changes to the script that Universal liked, they agreed to get the film going, and they got their cast and crew together. The movie was shot in a real-life military school called Kemper Military School and College in Missouri. This was the same school where the comedy Combat Academy was shot up in, with some scenes, just like Child's Play 2, being shot at the Universal Studios lot. And for the big final, they actually shot that at an actual carnival up in California. Kevin Yeager was once again brought back in to do the effects with the same puppeteers that he worked with on Chucky from the first two. But where this movie breaks new ground for the series is the fact that computers also played a role in operating Chucky. Also, just like Child's Play 2, Brad Dourif had his lines recorded ahead of time so the puppeteers could match his voice to the lip movement of the Chucky puppet. Shooting lasted till April of that year, and to market the film, Universal began making posters of Chucky's face on military uniforms, using the location of the movie as a marketing gimmick, saying Chucky wants you. They were also trying to take advantage of the back-to-school crowd that they were marketing the film towards. And the summer blues got you down? Well, you're in luck, because here comes the Chuck. But the movie was released in time for Labor Day weekend on August 30th, 1991, and it opened to number 2, making only over $5 million, with the number 1 spot being Dead Again. Despite slow numbers, it actually managed to become one of the top grossing Labor Day weekend movies, beating out Bolero? I don't know if I'm pronouncing the name right. And it finished its run with over $20 million. While profitable, it became the lowest grossing film of the series. Probably why the series was put on hold till Bride of Chucky in 1998. I'll talk about Bride in another video. But along with this being the lowest grossing film of the series, it's also the lowest rated film of the trilogy, as on Rotten Tomatoes it is a 19%. Critics praised the movie for its special effects and Brad Dourif's performance, but critics ripped it apart for feeling it was all style and no substance and lacked the sharpness of the first two. The audience side doesn't seem to represent that, though, as on that side, it is a lot more mixed. On IMDb, it is a 5.2 out of 10. And I know Don's on the critic side, as he has openly said this is his least favorite one, as he's expressed frustration with Universal not giving him enough time to write the movie. Brad Dourif has even said 3 is his least favorite. Apparently, I don't know if this is true or not, but I've heard on forums, but apparently somebody who knows Alex Vincent personally actually found him and asked him about this movie. Apparently, he doesn't like 3. Again, don't always believe what you hear on the internet till the actual person says it. But over time, I have heard people come out and defend this one. And I've even heard people say this one is their favorite, which I'll get to in a bit and I'll explain. But I don't know if Don and Brad's dislike towards this movie stems from the controversy this film garnered in the UK. Because for those who don't know, there was an incident around this kid named James Bulger, who basically was at a mall with his mom, and these two fucked up kids led him to a railroad where they tortured him to death in a way that Chucky does in this movie. That, along with a movie called Mikey, got the blame. But it was revealed that none of the boys had ever seen the movie, and they weren't even horror fans. So, once again, these dumbass journalists are wrong. And if these people did any research and actually looked at their background, we wouldn't have these problems with these dumbass reporters. And the media wouldn't be as fucking stupid as it is. Again, Tom Holland said it best with the first one. People who commit these heinous acts could only be influenced by the movie if they were unbalanced to begin with. I literally have been watching horror movies for so long, and I never felt the urge to go out and hurt someone. It's stupid for these people to paint the picture of this movie is the reason they killed this kid. I'm so sick and tired of these people writing these articles, running these stories, hinting that it's the filmmaker's job to be a moral instructor. So my advice to these people is stop listening to these morons. Shut the fuck up. Stop blaming media. Turn off the TV that your son, daughter, whoever it is watching, and be a parent. Stop being afraid to say no and stop blaming the media. Sorry about that, guys. I just had to go off about that. I'm just so tired of hearing about that almost every day. But I don't get where Brad, Dawn, and supposedly Alex are coming from to say this one is their least favorite. Because I saw Bride of Chucky recently, and I don't hate the film. I think it's okay. I'll save that for review. But I don't get how he prefers that over this one. Because I'm glad people have started to shine a positive light on this movie. Because it does not deserve any of the hate it has gotten for the longest time. Because I'll come out and say it, this is personally my favorite Chucky movie. Probably because of the movies, this is the one that I watch the most. But not only that, I feel it's the one movie of the series with the most unique bones in its body. And those aspects deserve to be given a lot more credit than I think people are willing to admit. It has its flaws, but so do the other ones. Bride especially, and I'll talk about that in the next video. Bride probably more so, but rewatching this, I still stand by this one being my favorite. I'll explain why later, though. But getting into the cast, taking over the role of Andy from Alex Vincent, you have Justin Whalen doing that. Justin Whalen, this is a kid from Serial Mom. He was also on that TV show Lois and Clark. You have Perry Reeves, who was Cecilia on Doogie Howser. She was in an episode of The X-Files and Escape to Witch Mountain. Jeremy Silvers, this is the only major movie role he got. After this, he did an episode of Saved by the Bell. Travis Fiennes, who's going to be in some movie called Girl Interrupted. And of course, reprising his role for the third time as Chucky, Brad Dourif. Other actors, you got Peter Haskell reprising his role for the first two. They finish up his character. Dakin Matthews from The Swamp Princess. Andrew Robinson's even in this from Dirty Harry. Larry and Frank from Hellraiser. Cobra, and even Pumpkinhead 2. Getting into the plot of this movie, the plot is basically 8 years have passed since the events of Child's Play 2, and the good guy image has been forever tainted thanks to their association with the Chucky massacre in the other two, putting the company in debt and going into bankruptcy. Well, Sullivan, played by Peter Haskell, decides to relaunch the brand, and while workers are cleaning the dusted factory, they find Chucky's remains from part 2, and while moving it to dispose of the body, they accidentally cut into his flesh, which causes the blood to fall into a vat of molten plastic, resurrecting Chucky, played by Brad Dourif, in a new body. Meanwhile, we see Andy, who is now 16, played by Justin Whalen, and is still dealing with the trauma he endured in the first two after being moved from foster home to foster home after finding himself unable to make himself at home. They decide the best course of action is to place him in a military school. Things may have gotten off on the wrong foot when he gets there, as he finds himself in the crosshairs of this drill instructor Shelton, played by Travis Fiennes. But eventually things do start to get better as he starts making friends with a kid named Whitehurst, played by Gene Jacobson, and even a girl named De Silva, played by Perry Reeves, who takes a liking to him. All seems well, but not all things remain happy in Andy's world, because Chucky has discovered where he is and manages to mail himself to the factory, where the package ends up being found by this kid named Tyler, who Chucky ends up coming into contact with and manipulates him into being his friend, so he could tell him who he really was before he became Chucky. As now, because he's resurrected in a new body, he can pick a new person to transfer his soul into. So now Andy has to protect Tyler, all the while dealing with the path of dead bodies Chucky has left behind as he's killing off the residents of the military school to get to Tyler. Will Andy be able to protect Tyler? Or will Tyler, not knowing how to play hide the soul, end up being the new commander for Chucky? Now, Child's Play 3 has everything that I look for in a sequel to a horror movie. You can argue the setup is the same as it was in the first two, which may tie into the strained production with how much time Don had at his disposal. But I think he did enough with what he could to give the movie its own identity. And that's one of the biggest complaints I hear from people about this movie, is that the tone is a little bit different in this movie. It's still horror, but the comedy is a little bit more in there as opposed to the first. Whereas the first one and the second one, while they were funny and they had their black comedy elements, they were mostly played uber straight. And most of the comedy came from Chucky and his outburst as well as his mouth. But this, the comedy comes more from aspects like in the drill sergeant or even in the way Chucky kills people, which they still hang on to the mean-spirited nature of 2, which I hate using that word. But the ideas and the setups behind them are a little bit more fun and carry more of a sense of outrageousness of, say, Friday the 13th Part 6 or 7, 6 minus the self-aware nature. So that may turn some people off, but in all honesty, I never found them scary. And despite those small moments that people drudge up, I think the comedy works great here. And I'm honestly going to say it here. I think it did better here than it did with Bride of Chucky. I know that's heresy because I know I have friends who like the film, but this did it much better to me. And the comedy feels like it's on the level of the first 2. And by the third, you better have some fun with the idea, as by now Chucky is not the horrific figure everybody made him out to be. You look at like Nightmare on Elm Street with like the first 2, Freddy was straight, and by the third they were having some fun with the idea of these kids being basically targeted by Freddy in their dreams, and they're using powers to basically try and bring them down. They had fun with the idea, and I think this film did the same thing. And nowhere is that any more evident than in the opening with him and Sullivan, where he makes him trip on marbles and literally whacks him in the face with a golf club. Those felt in line with the first 2, and the comedy is still there with Chucky's mouth. So there's that sense of like comedicness there, but it's not as cringe as how Bride of Chucky did it. Another thing that I really love about the movie is the setting. I love the military school setting. That's one of the things that I always felt like stuck with me when I first saw this movie. And it's probably the reason I watched this one the most. Being a kid obsessed with tanks and cars, I thought it made this movie stand out from the first 2. And it used the idea to its advantage as, say, Friday the 13th Part 8, Jason Takes Manhattan, opposed to that, which barely took place in Manhattan. Unlike this, which has him going throughout the school and using the school to his advantage to kill people. I like the boarding school-like exterior that they gave the movie. It gave it a new sight to behold with the wooden panels on the floor and the dorm. I always like when these horror sequels incorporate a new setting into the mix and have fun with the idea. Whether it's with the setting or how they tie that into the kills. And it isn't uber serious about it. And just like the second one, I'm also happy with the fact that they're continuing the story of Andy from the first one, where now you see Andy as a teenager, and so basically he's still traumatized by Chucky's rampage. He's trying to grow up, he's trying to get over all that, and despite finding some happiness in this military school, Chucky finds him at this school, and he's targeting another kid. And I like this plot point because it feels like it's Andy's turn to play the moral figure that protects somebody from Chucky, much in the same way Kyle or his mother did in the first one. Because it felt like it brought his arc to a close. Because not only does it feel like it's him getting revenge on Chucky for everything he's done, but it's also him plunging the sword into Chucky to show, you don't scare me anymore. Aspects like that I don't feel people bring up enough, because you hear so many people say it wastes its character, it's a glorified cameo. Here comes a movie that actually shows a character finishing its arc, but it still gets shit. And those points deserve to be acknowledged more than people have made it out to be. Another complaint that I've heard people have with this movie is the directing. which I can and can't understand, especially being that this is Jack Bender's first feature, so there is a bit of that first time directing jitters, as some of the shots do feel a bit static, and the placement of the camera isn't as unique as it was in the other two, as some of the shots could have used a bit more flair to them, especially in the daytime, where it always looks drab and cloudy. Which I get, it's supposed to take place in the winter, but some scenes could have used a bit more flair done with some of the shots, especially when compared to the first, which was set during the winter, so there was some nice atmosphere, especially with how Tom was able to work with the Chicago setting. Thankfully, his directing does get better as the film goes along. And I'll say, at the beginning, there are some small dosages where he does have some cool tricks with the camera. Like when Sullivan first gets Chucky and he puts him down on the couch and steps away to make a drink, and the camera slowly pans to the front of the box and you see Chucky's gone. That shot sticks out to me because it felt the closest in spirit to the second one out of any of the shots in this movie. And to be fair, you do get some good shots of the school. The night scenes do have some atmosphere to them. He still knows how to shoot darkness and shadows in the correct moments. And at some points, I will say, I think he has some of the best lighting and darkness in this movie of any of the films in the entire series. Especially the scenes of Chucky walking down the hallway or running with this little bit of the orangey lighting that he incorporated. Even when it comes to how Chucky is shot, I think Chucky is directed the best in this movie, despite having more shots of him moving at the torso here, like the first one, as opposed to the second, which did have more scenes of him being shown as full body being moved. Those scenes in this movie do have some energy due to the lighting and the actors working with the Chucky doll, especially in the final with the theme park at the end. That's a moment you really start to see Jack's direction step up a notch. And when it does come to the kills, I think those look great. The cinematography in those sections are really good. Like I said, they still have the viciousness of the second one and the creativity. I'll talk deeper on them when I do get into effects. But while there are some kinks, I do think Jack did what he could with the directing. The acting is also solid, I gotta say, and I think one of the standouts for me is Justin Whalen. I think he did a great job taking over the role of Andy from Alex Vincent. I thought they did a great job picking someone who carried a bit of the same facial structure as Alex. I like the mannerisms that he brought to him that really reminded me of Alex Vincent's performance. And if he grew up, I could totally see him looking like this. And just like Andy, I think he does a great job working with the animatronics and the Chucky puppet. So overall, I think Justin Whalen deserves a lot more credit than what he got. And I definitely think he deserved more roles than what he had gotten, because he hasn't really done much, because he deserves a lead role again. The only problem I will say with the cast is Jeremy Silvers as Tyler. I like the idea of what they were going with this one, of him being a mirror of Andy from 1 and 2, well, technically the first one, and Andy playing the part of his mom or Kyle. But Jeremy is nowhere near close to the performance that Alex gave in the first. His delivery wasn't natural. At points, it felt like he was trying to force this squeaky voice to appear younger than he actually is and appear innocent. And it just was annoying in some areas. And some of the lines he's given, I felt were dumb. In particular, when Chucky first meets him and he goes, "Who the fuck are you?" And he goes, "I thought you guys only said 3 sentences." I'm like, kid, this doll just came alive and swore at you, and that's all you can say? What the fuck were you smoking, kid? You're like that dumbass in Carnosaur. "Greetings, Green Brother." That's what you remind me of. Stuff like that made it hard for me to like him. Granted, at the end, he does stand up for himself, but it still felt too little too late. I really wish they got someone who was a better actor all around than Jeremy. And there's a reason why he hasn't done much since then, because this definitely exemplifies it. But he's the only kink in the armor when it comes to the cast. One of the few I did like, Perry Reeves. I liked a lot as the Silver, but definitely I think she gave a great performance. This tough, no nonsense chick who takes a liking to Andy, and you find out she looks into Andy's past and sees him being transferred from foster home to foster home. So she sees why he's so quiet. I like that there's somebody who Andy connects with on a romantic level, like the woods scene, and they're looking at the carnival and she starts making out with him. And I like this because it adds to that piece of this being Andy's slice of heaven, that you finally have somebody who connects with him on a romantic level. And that also has to deal with the fact, like, you look at Child's Play 2 and you look at the scene with him on the school bus and the people are throwing shit at him and flicking him later on. And it's nice to have this movie kind of give Andy the somebody who likes him. And I like the fact that she's strong, she's not wimpy, she's not annoying, she's not a bitch. And the fact that she joins Andy in the end and helping him take down Chucky, I like that. I like that there was someone willing to help him. Also, spoiler, she doesn't die. So give kudos to that, Don Mancini. For how much shit you want to give this movie, you actually did some stuff I like. Travis Fiennes played a good douche as the drill instructor. You wanted him to die. I thought he had some good lines. It's like when he's getting on Whitehurst and making fun of him and even make him clean his shoes later, and he finds them with a stain on them. He goes, "Hey, what the fuck is this?" That had me dying. But he's a good douche, I gotta say. Other actors, you got Andrew Robinson as this barber named Botnick, who's always scheduling people for haircuts, and at times you can kind of say it's a fetish for him, because as he's cutting the hair, he's like, "Oh yeah, silky and smooth and all this." I'm like, what the fuck is up with this guy? But he was fun in this. Always good to see Andrew Robinson in this. Dean Jacobson is this kid Whitehurst, who a friend of mine, Mike, aka OCP Communication, had once admitted he looks at like Whitehurst if he was shaved. I actually like him. I like the fact that him and Andy kind of form this connection together, and he starts off a little bit like a wimp, and then he takes probably the most heroic death of any of the actors in these movies. So really do like him in that area. Peter Haskell returns as Sullivan, and the character is quickly disposed of. But of course, can't forget Brad Dourif as Chucky, which honestly, I'm going to say this, I don't give a fuck if people want to get mad at me for this. This is his best performance as Chucky. I don't get how Brad Dourif can sit there and say this one is his least favorite and then say Bride of Chucky is his favorite when he has nothing to do in that. He takes a backseat to Tiffany. When he's at the most probably unhinged in this one, I think he has the best one-liners in this one. He has the famous one-line of "Don't fuck with the Chuck" in this. I don't get Brad Dourif for talking down on this one, especially when you have one-liners like that, or Chucky's gonna be a bro. And I like the fact that he's in a new body. I like the fact that the character sets out to take on a new host and pretty much starts manipulating Tyler in the same way he did with Andy from the first, and pretty much trying to attack him, like the scene where he finds the note and it's like, "Dear Charles, come and find me, your best friend Tyler." He goes, "Shit." And then he gets to the classroom, he's looking for him, he goes, "Tyler, come out, wherever you are. Get out here, you little son of a bitch." So yeah, I like that. I like him in this. And speaking of that whole instance of the story where he's basically manipulating the kid, we do see him talk more to the kid in this one as opposed to the first. Whereas in the first one, it was like more like setting up, could Andy be the one killing people, or is Chucky the one doing it? But since now Chucky's now the face of the franchise, I think it was the right call to go with it here. And I think him and Justin play well off each other. There's more scenes of the two talking, which in the first two, well, technically in the first, it was more of a mystery. But in, like, number two, you barely saw them interact together because Andy was practically silent the whole time. This, you actually kind of see the two more talking and arguing with each other, still showing that Andy hasn't went back on his development from 2 and trying to fight for himself, like the bedroom scene, and he throws the shoe at him and starts beating him on the floor. So there's a lot more of the two kind of going at it with each other, and I like that. I also like the knife that he has in this one that you see stole from the drill sergeant. So all around, the acting is very good. But of course, it all comes down to the effects. Now, I've heard people complain about this one. I've heard people say Chucky looks bad in this one. The effects look bad. I beg to differ. I honestly feel in this one, Chucky looks the best. I think along with 2, these are some of the best effects of the entire series. Yeah, I know, but I think the design of Chucky is fantastic. And I'll say this, I like it more than Bride of Chucky's design. The effects on Chucky are not bad in that movie, and the design is fine, but I still think in this one, he's the best he's ever looked. The animatronics look great. The fact that they were operating on him with computers allowed for Chucky's mannerisms to look more realistic. I know some have said he looked a bit plasticky in this one. I don't see that as a problem, as Chucky is a doll, and I didn't find it as noticeable. I like the eyes that he has in this one, kind of giving him this devil look. That right there. Don't know if you guys could see it. I thought it looked creepier. I thought he looked very good in this one. Once again, though, they don't show him turning into the human in this one, which that plot isn't as explored in this one, as he still looks like a doll the whole movie, and the whole aspect of time running out before he could transfer his soul to a body isn't taken accounted for. But I still think that the effects look great in this one. And there is a cool effect later on with Chucky when at the carnival at the end, half his face gets sliced off by a Grim Reaper sigh. I like the design there. I like how the eye looks, or this side, the eye looks right here, like you see a piece of it sticking out there. That looked cool. And I also think the kills are great. I'm going to be honest here, along with 2, these are my favorite kills of the series. There's one scene in particular when Chucky tricks a guy in a garbage truck into saving him, and he jumps out of the truck and into the driver's seat and crushes the driver. Andrew Robinson gets his throat slit a la Sweeney Todd. There's a hilariously mean and yet awesome scene where he switches the paintball bullets with real bullets, and you can see where that goes. So the deaths are very creative, and if some want to say, they still do offer up the mean-spirited feel of 2, and they offer up a great use of practical blood. Tying this all up is a fantastic score by John DeAndre and Corey Hurros, and I'd say the best in the series. I love how the music ties into the theme of the military marching music, but also this cool little guitar riff in some scenes, or even the opening with the I can't do it, but you have to listen to it for yourself. But even the opening credits with Chucky being reformed with the molten plastic, I thought was a really cool opening, and how his mouth opens. But yeah, I love this one. And I still don't understand why this one is disliked for the longest time. As despite being the 3rd movie, it does do enough to stand on its own, and I feel it deserves to be acknowledged more. It has its flaws, and I already mentioned them, but those are the only ones I can think of, because Child's Play 3 is a great soldier in the war who deserves more respect than what he gets, and it closes off the trilogy with a bang. Again, I don't feel it deserves the hate that it's got. It's not one that Don Mancini decided, I don't have any more ideas, so it's bad. Or Brad Dourif, I don't get him saying it's his least favorite. It's a fun slasher film. And I think it's the last great Child's Play film. You'll see my thoughts on Bride of Chucky, but I thought that was a step down from this one. How people feel about this one is how I'm going to feel about this. But for Child's Play 3, if you like the first 2, I highly recommend you check out Child's Play 3. It's a great ride. So when it comes down to it, I give Child's Play 3 a 9.9 out of 10. And it would get a 10 had it just fixed those minor issues, like have a little bit more flair in the directing, and had a better actor to play Tyler. But still enough to give it the Alexandra seal of approval. Definitely a great film in the series. But that's my review for Child's Play 3, and next time I am going to do a review on Urban Legend. Be on the lookout for that. You guys will be seeing my thoughts on that soon. And then I'm going to do a review on Bride of Chucky and then Strangeland. I'm trying to get those all done with because Halloween's in like a week. But you guys will see my thoughts on those soon. I have no work today. I might go for a walk and start writing them. But for right now, I'll see you guys later. Let me know in the comments below what you guys think of Child's Play 3. Is it your favorite? Do you guys like this one? Which is your favorite in the series? I guys would love to know. Be sure to rate, comment, and subscribe, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye.